We are now in front of the tropical greenhouse of the Hortus botanicus Leiden. The Hortus Leiden is growing tropical plants since the 1700s, growing tropical plants from the Dutch colonies in the tropical Asia and Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Papua. This greenhouse is here renovated since 2014 with the presence of the Queen Maxima from the Netherlands, and she inaugurated the greenhouse. And now, since 2014, we are growing different kind of plants, mainly from tropical Southeast Asia. Should go in. Those big leaves here behind us is a Latonya palm. They're endemic from Mauritius Island. They only grow in that island. And here on the right side of it, this other amazing leaf is an endemic palm from Seychelles Island. So we have kind of two endemic palms from really close islands from each other, from Africa. This plant here is the Citrus hystrix, jeruk purut in Indonesia, also named. It's a cousin of our orange and lemon. It's a citrus plant, a citric plant. And it has very interesting leaves because it has kind of a double leaf, but actually it's a stalk, a winged stalk. So the leaf is here, and have a winged stalk, so it looks like a double leaf. This is the leaf stalk with the wing, and this is the main leaf. Nobody really knows the origin of this plant, but because it's used so widely and grew so widely in the Southeast Asian, we guess it comes from there originally. It's used widely in Thailand, Indonesia, China, India to make curries, to season meat, fish. So it's a very fragrant plant, and the leaves are used, as I said, in cuisine, but also in perfumery and to give fragrance to shampoos, to cleaning liquids, but also in aromatherapy. There's also a nice story about this plant, is that slaves in Sri Lanka and Ceylon back then, they would rub those leaves in their legs and feet so they could walk in the plantations without being attacked by leech or insects. So it's also an insect repellent and leech repellent. And you can touch it and smell it, immediately smell the citrus smell. We're going to talk about the ginger, the Zingiber officinalis, which is not this plant. This plant is a cousin of the ginger because the ginger that we buy in the supermarket needs a dry winter, which you cannot reproduce here in the greenhouse. This is actually the ginger from Thailand, called Alpinia galanga. But they behave the same. It's almost the same plant. So this is a good example of how ginger looks like. So the ginger, the Zingiber officinalis, is only known in cultivation, meaning that they don't have a plant that is wild. So it's known for man cultivation. Okay, let's bring a bit around. And this is the ginger rhizome. It goes underground. Just like a potato or a tulip bulb. It was first grown by the Polynesians, and the Polynesians made it popular throughout Asia, bringing to India and China, which started growing them in large scale and trading them with Arabs as a spice since the beginning of time. And as mainly used as a food ingredient for spices, but also cakes, teas, and many other uses we know from ginger. Gingerbread, speculas, you can name it. We are now here close to the Myristica fragrans plant from the Myristicaceae family. It's a tree endemic from the Maluku Islands in Indonesia and is known to give us two spices, the nutmeg and the mace. We get those two spices by drying the fruit of this plant, and when it's dry, the fruit crack open, we have a seed, and around the seed there's an aril, a red flesh around it. The seed we make the nutmeg from, and the red aril we make mace, another spice. Both of them are used in soups and stews and sweets, speculas, pumpkin soup. You can name a lot of recipes, delicious recipes with nutmeg and mace. An interesting story about this plant is that the trading was controlled by the Portuguese, and VOC saw the opportunity to have control of this spice as well, and they want to make a monopoly out of it. So they got plants from the Portuguese islands, from Maluku, and brought to the Banda Islands, also in Indonesia. But doing that, they started a war with the local inhabitants of the Banda Islands. And this war, the Dutch VOC killed 14 out of 15,000 people of the island, and the rest, the other 1,000 people, they enslaved them. So it's a dubious story, because we have, in one hand, very delicious and tasty spices, but the price we have to pay was kind of a genocide of people in one island. And this way, the VOC acquired the monopoly of the spice, but later on, when Napoleon conquered the Netherlands, the Dutch government was weakened, and the British took control of those plantations, grabbed some plants, and planted it in the New World, in their British colonies, in the Caribbean and Hawaii. And this way, the Dutch lost the monopoly of these spices, and the British got it. Now we are close to the most traded spice in the world until today, since the ancient times. The black pepper, Piper nigrum, the Latin name. This plant here is a vine. It grows up a tree, climbs a tree, and it gives us fruit. The fruit comes from the axial of the leaf, between the leaf stalk and the stalk of the vine. The fruit spike produces little berries, and those berries are what we call the black pepper. The black pepper is the unripe, cooked and dried fruit of this plant. The white pepper, that we also use as a spice, is the grounded seed of this plant. And the green pepper is the pickled, unripe fruit of this plant. They're all the same plant and different spices, but all the same plant. And ancient times was so valuable, it was also known as the black gold. So valuable it was. This plant has been traded since the ancient times by the Romans, which already had opened a route to India themselves, through the Red Sea, all the way to India. This plant, by the way, is native to India, from South India. The same route was later ruled by the Persians and the Arabs. So the monopoly was passing from Roman to the Persians to the Arabs. When the Arab took control of this merchandise, there was no connection between the Arab-Islamic world with Europe at the time because of jihad, because of holy wars. The only connection between Islamic Arab world and Christian Europe was via the Genoese and the Venetians, these two super powerful city-states. The Genoese and the Venetians traded black pepper from Islamic world to Europe, and they became super powerful and rich. The Venetians and the Genoese took control of the monopoly of trading the spice in Europe. Tired of paying huge amounts of price per kilo of black pepper, the Portuguese got angry and decided to find their own way to India, which made Vasco da Gama sail from Europe, crossing the Cape of Good Hope and reaching India to get their own source of spices, of black pepper. So it's a very important plant. It kind of discovered a new way to India. This plant here is Tabernanthe Iboga, also known as Iboga. It's native from Congo and West African tropical forest. Its root has a very powerful alkaloid, a very powerful chemical that has been traditionally used by African tribes in shamanistic rituals because it brings super strong hallucinations and near-death experiences. But also in small doses is used by hunters in Africa to keep them sharp while hunting. This plant is helpful to treat people addicted to heroin, opioids, and also alcohol. So there's a lot of ongoing research to this plant to develop a drug that really helps people to stop addiction. This plant is also prohibited in many countries because of its hallucinogenic effects, which is a pity because it stops the ongoing research to help to discover new drugs, helping people fight addiction. This is the Syzygium aromaticum for the Myrtaceae family, the Eucalyptus family, and this gives us the clove. The clove is the dried flower bud of this plant, which means that before the flower opening, we harvest the buds, dry them, and you have the clove. We can extract from the clove oil. Clove oil is a super strong medicine, has anesthetic and antibiotics properties. So it can help treating wounds and is widely used as a toothache medicine. If you have a toothache, you soothe it by dropping a drop of clove oil It stops the pain and kills any bacteria that might be infecting your tooth. So it's a miracle plant. In front of us here is the inflorescence of Thunbergia missorensis, a vine from South India, endemic to South India. This plant here is a super tropical plant and a super grower. 2 years ago we pruned this plant to the ground here at the Hortus, Leiden, and in 6 months' time it grew back again the way it is now, a huge plant. So this is a very wild plant. They produce these amazing flower spikes, the super nice flower spikes. The flower produces nectar that you can see here if you look inside the flower. The nectar, pure sugar. In nature, it will attract hummingbirds and sunbirds. Here in the greenhouse, attracts a lot of ant attention. Despite of what many people think, this is not an orchid and also not a carnivore plant. This is a plant from the Acanthaceae family, which is a cousin of the well-known Acanthus mollis or the Sachte Acanthus, a garden plant common in our gardens here in the Netherlands. We are now here close to the cinnamomum species. Cinnamomum is sold all over the world as cinnamon. We have several species of cinnamomum that is sold as cinnamon. This one specifically is the burmani. Here in the greenhouse, in the Hortus, we have the cinnamomum burmani and the cinnamomum verum. The cinnamon is obtained by harvesting the stem of this plant, which we sprout back, taking the bark out, letting it dry, and once it's dry, it curls and makes the non-cinnamon stick. The cinnamomum species, they are from the Lauraceae family, which is the family of the bay leaf, Laurus nobilis, and also the family of avocado. We can easily recognize it. Those 3 apparent nervures in the leaf shows us that is from the Lauraceae family. A leaf of cinnamon is almost always like that, easy to recognize. We can also extract cinnamon oil from the leaves by cooking it, and the oil is used in the food industry broadly. And to obtain cinnamon, as I mentioned before, we get the dried bark, but you can also grind the bark and have cinnamon powder, also used widely in kitchen and tea and spicing up our food. As you can see here, we're in front of a banana plant. Banana plants are from the Musa genera. Musa genera have several species. This one specific is Musa cavendish, the dwarf banana, widely produced because they're short and they produce delicious fruit. Banana plants, they grow as high as a tree, but they are not trees. Their trunk is formed by curled up leaves. They don't form wood, so they are not considered trees botanically speaking. Banana plants are actually herbs. If you cut them here, you only see a leafy material. You don't see wood at all. Banana for fruit, they don't have any seed, which means they can only be reproduced via vegetative ways, like this one here. There's a baby banana here. Just take this baby and plant somewhere else. Wild bananas, they have rock-hard seeds inside their fleshy fruits. And they're still edible, but we don't want these rock-hard seeds because otherwise we break our teeth. We selected bananas without seeds because we want the most amount of fleshy fruit. Those are still green, but once they get yellow and ripe, they are delicious without any seed. This is Coffea arabica, the coffee plant. Although the name is Arabica, it didn't come out Arab from the Arabs. And this plant is originally from tropical Africa, from West Africa, but was for centuries cultivated by the Ethiopians and Somali. And from there, brought to the Arabs. The Arabs, though, made the drink very popular among themselves and later on in Europe. And it's a very important commodity, trading commodity for many countries until today in the world, being responsible for whole economies, such as in Colombia and Central American countries. What is interesting about this plant, it flowers on the branch. So in a branch, it gets flowers. After that, it gets berries. Those berries, when ripe, they become red. And what we actually know as coffee is the toasted and ground seed of those berries. The plant would flower in the branches here, all over the branch. After that, the flower would become fruit, also in the branch. The fruit, when ripe, will get red. And inside those red berries, we have the seeds, which we toast and ground and make coffee powder. And then from the coffee powder, we make the coffee drink, which you drink every morning. Our tropical greenhouse tries to mimic in every way a tropical rainforest. All the mulch, all dead leaves and dead branches falls into the ground and is recycled into new nutrients for the plant to keep growing. That's why we leave all the mulch, all the dead leaves, branch on the ground. We don't clean it. It also creates a mini ecosystem that hosts uncountable numbers of insects, fungi and bacteria which are beneficial for the whole forest ecosystem. We don't use a single drop of pesticide. We have such a stable population of beneficial insects that all the pests are eaten or predated by beneficial insects. So we have a healthy ecosystem because we rely on the natural recycling system of the greenhouse. With the idea to reproduce a tropical marsh, we dig here in the greenhouse a pond. So it's the flooded area of our tropical rainforest here. Around this pond, we grow many marsh area plants, such as Nepenthes, the Becker plant, the carnivore Nepenthes, and Molineria and other plants. But what is also interesting about this pond, it became the breeding ground for what you hear now. The whistling frog, the ghost dart frog, Epipedopates tricolor, is a small frog from Ecuador, which came here by accident, but now they become part of our ecosystem in the greenhouse. Those frogs, they lay eggs in leaves close to water, and once the eggs hatch, the father takes the tadpoles on their back and brings them to this pond. So this pond now, besides being our marsh imitations of nature, is also the breeding grounds of these amazing little creatures that crawls in our greenhouse. You're a bit shy. Yeah. So this is the Epipedobates tricolor, the poison dart frog from Ecuador. He's the one that lives in the greenhouse and makes this whistling sound we hear all the time. In nature, he can be poisonous because he eats poisonous ants and insects, but here in the greenhouse, they don't eat any poisonous insects, so they are harmless to people. They make the whistling sound to attract females and also to protect their own territory and their own egg sac. Opa!